Hi, this is Rahman Sheikh. Welcome to Railway Transportation Systems Podcast. I am the host and railway systems specialist working in this industry for 24 years and counting. This podcast is primarily focused on railway people who have the vast amount of experience and contributed greatly to this amazing industry. This is not a technical seminar but focuses on feel good stories, individual journeys, their success and failures, motivating younger generation to kickstart their career in railways and creating a sense of pride for railway people who devoted their lives on the most environmentally friendly public transportation. Our first guest on Railway Transportation Systems podcast is Helen Williams, Executive General Manager at Systra ANZ. Helen started her professional career in 1989 with academic qualifications of Bachelors Degree in Engineering, specialising in Astronautical Engineering. She also completed a graduate diploma in Railway Signalling and Telecommunications from Central Queensland University. Helen is a senior, passionate leader about creating inclusive cultures that empower people and allow them to thrive in their chosen professions. A collaborative leader with highly technical background who can find the balance between consulting and leading delivery of strategic and operational outcomes. Hi, Helen. Welcome to the Railway Transportation Podcast.
Hey, good morning. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm just incredibly honoured to be your first guest on this. So thank you so much for inviting me. I can't think of a better way to spend a Sunday morning than chatting to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Helen. You are in this, especially in the railway industry. People would definitely love hearing to you and listening to your thoughts. So before I start, I would like to start with my first question. Can you tell me your railway journey story, please?
I can. Now, it may surprise you and others to know that my railway journey part of the story is not actually that long. I've spent actually less than half of my career in rail. So, like many others, it's a little bit of an accidental one. Um, and a very happy accident, I have to say. But I spent the first part of my career, as you know, more in the defence industry. I eventually became very specialised in the conduct of trials and in safety and the development of safety cases in high risk and safety critical areas. And I have to be absolutely honest and say it was more the opportunity of coming over to Australia that brought me into rail with the transferable skills that I had. And I actually found it was an incredible match. I've got a real passion, not just for rail, but for transportation as a whole. And I found it was a really, really good fit. And, 12 years later, I haven't looked back.
Wow, it's what a nice story. I think that accident was pretty good for transportation industry because we.
Thank you.
So considering that, what is the biggest challenge in your career so far?
I think the way I would answer that one, because I've thought about that a lot. And actually, one of my biggest challenges is myself. We talk a lot about, leadership and behaviours at work. And I know we've often had the discussion that your strength, an overplayed strength, is also your vulnerability. So one of my biggest challenges is my inability to say no. I am very passionate. I get very enthusiastic about everything. I take on a possibly extended sense of responsibility for everything that I get involved with. So I have an attribute that comes from a very, very good place. But if you let it run too far, it doesn't have the best outcome. So for me, sometimes that inability to say no, that inability to stand back a little bit from things does create for me one of my biggest challenges. I'm very aware of it. As you can see, I leapt straight in with it. And so I do have strategies to try and manage it and to try and reel myself back. But yes, I do fit that phrase sometimes of I am my own worst enemy. So passion is a wonderful thing, but the ability to just rein it back a little bit is one of the biggest challenges that I find.
Correct. Absolute. What an amazing answer. You have reminded me, Brené Brown and Simon Sinek, all this top class leadership team exactly speak the same way. We are very blessed to have you, Helen, in this industry. You bring so many good thoughts for us. You challenge. So your best challenge is yourself, not competing with others or not comparing with others. Moving forward, so what was the most significant turning point in your life?
Certainly coming, in career times, there's probably 2 points that I can think of most recently, and one of them was just that whole move of coming out to Australia. It was such a big shift and change, both in terms of, the whole family and way of life, just that whole exercise of going through the migration, settling family in another country, but also the opportunity that gave me to work in a completely different industry. We all talk a lot about making mid-career changes, putting in changes of direction. It's not always that straightforward to do. So I was very fortunate to be able to make a career change that still drew on, my management experience, my experience of safety critical systems, but to be able to then quickly learn it in another completely different industry. Not everyone gets that opportunity to make that change. And I think the other really significant point was when I moved between being on the rail operator side, when I moved from being with Sydney Trains to moving to Transport for New South Wales. The opening up of my perspectives, having been in one place for around 8 years, was just quite a phenomenal eye-opener. And again, just seeing that opportunity for what else was there, what else was available, just what else went on in the rail and the transport industry that I hadn't really been aware of. I'd been in quite a tight, enclosed space. So they were really 2 points for me that really shifted for me.
It was continuous learning. Yeah, I can understand packing the bags because I myself moved 3 continents and being from client side to maintainer. So it's a vast difference.
It is a big difference, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. And it helps both ways. You share your knowledge and you learn. So it's a continuous learning, right?
Absolutely.
Helen, I think I really want to ask this question, if you mind to share your thoughts on this. What do you wish you know before starting your career in railways? The accident, you said you talked about the
Yeah.
accidental moving. So once you came in, what did you thought, oh, I wish I could knew this or...
Yeah, what I wish I'd known, and it's something that actually probably would have drawn me into transportation earlier, I think, is quite how complex rail is. And I very much, apart from anything, I very much underestimated it when I came out and joined rail. I think probably tipping into probably even a little bit of arrogance. I thought it couldn't possibly be as complex as the world I
Defense?
was leaving behind. As defence, yeah, because you
Yeah,
think, like many others, you think railways, it's a bit mechanical, clunky, running trains. All you've got to do is keep them on the rails and keep them apart from each other.
yeah,
How hard can that be? And then, just to learn it is at least as complex, but in different ways. The whole train control side of things. And obviously that's how we got to know each other, is the whole rail signalling and the whole future of train control systems. And passengers, obviously coming from the defence side, this part of it was new to me. If we wanted to trial something, you'd take it off and you'd put it in a contained area and space and do that. So for me, coming out to rail and seeing, validation trials that were run, between traffic, in possessions, at night time, and just how much of rail operated in and around without the operations missing a beat or barely missing a beat. And I had no concept that that's what it was like. I had no idea that major construction projects just fitted in on weekends and short shutdowns, and that the machine just kept moving the whole time. So, I kind of wish I'd understood that
yeah.
a little bit more instead of just feeling it out when I got here.
Yeah, you put quite quite a sharp light on this. This is the whole point, Helen. So when I go out for a walk, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I found that there are technical seminars on railways, but there is none about the people, about the stories. So when within in my own family, when I talk about the job I do, they don't understand it because there is not much content outside there. People really don't know what railway people go through or what railway people contribute to. But there are many podcasts for defense or any other industry. You can find content, but not for railway people. So that's my whole purpose of starting this. And I thought, why not start with a leader who is a woman and who has moved continents and who is doing amazing job.
You say such nice things. I've got to say, what I love about what you're sharing, though, is I do love about the rail industry is despite perceptions, you don't have to have been in rail forever and ever and ever. You didn't have to start in rail and be in it for 40 years to be made to feel welcome and to feel part of it. So if we do nothing else in your series, let's bust that myth a little bit that it is a welcoming industry and there is space for people.
Yeah. I think I want to ask my next question something very similar linked to what we are discussing now. So, what do you think? What is a common myth about your job or the industry?
Yeah, that is really closely linked, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is the one thing, is that you have to have been in rail since you were 14 years old. And that's not true. There's more and more. There's plenty of us coming and adding value from other industries. But I think the real myth is that concept that it's slightly old-fashioned, that it's old technology, that, particularly if I talk on the engineering side, because that's, the background we both come from, people talk about, the track, the civil, the electrical. I'll offend one group by leaving them out, I'm sure. But we think of it as being quite heavy, dirty engineering. It's just so much that's not all there is about it. There is so much that's right on the cutting edge of technology. In the ICT systems, in the future control systems, and the variety of backgrounds and disciplines that can be involved. And, the amount of times where actually rail is first in some things. Some of the, the advances that are going on, some of the uses of what you see of digital engineering in that space, what we see in virtual reality, what we see in the applications and the computer-based side of things. It's right at the forefront, and people just don't get to see that.
Yeah, I observed even within my family, in the younger generations, the people who are doing engineering, I ask them to do the artificial intelligence and they think, they say me, hey uncle, you are in railways, what do you understand about AI? So that's a problem. So really the younger generation don't know what we actually do or how vast and how technology advanced is railways. So moving ahead, what do you consider to be your biggest competitor? I think this is a tough one.
This is a tough one. How long have we got on this one? I think even if you'd asked me this question, 3 or 4 years ago, the answer would have been very different, because in the current environment, there's such a boom in infrastructure and in transportation and in the investment. Someone that we would have thought of as being a competitor is now very often our closest ally. There is more work and opportunity out there than we have people to respond to it. So as well as having to work in different and smarter ways, we do need to join together with complementary partners in the industry, and finding who and how to partner up, so that you do it in a way that, I'd say a symbiotic relationship. It's not just 1 and 1 makes 2. It's got to be 1 and 1 makes 3 these days. You partner up in a way that each can bring their best value. So for me, I don't really see the competitor side of it as being just as straight going out and, the bidding, the winning work, your company against company. Competition now for me is probably about people. And I find when I think of myself as being in competition with someone, I'm genuinely thinking about I'm in competition with another person or an organisation for how can I attract the best talent and the new and emerging talent and bring it to me and to my organisation. So I guess I'm going round the houses to say people out there may be my competitors, but we're competing over something different nowadays.
Correct.
So for me, my competitor now is who can offer the best career, the best, rounded package of professional development, the best place that someone wants to be. That's really what I feel I'm competing with now.
Brilliant, brilliant. What a great answer. There's a lot to take in. It is. So I got my next question is also somewhat similar to what I have asked, but in a different angle. So what has surprised you when you first started, especially in this industry, railway industry?
Yeah, in this industry, I suppose I was surprised by, the two kind of myths we've already touched on. One being that rail is a much more simple beast than a lot of us, and anticipated if you didn't know any better. And also this concept of it being a very closed, tight world and that nobody will let you in. Because that hasn't really been my experience. Yes, there is a little bit of a, people who've been in rail for 40 years and they all know each other and there's a network and people leverage that network. But I've never felt that there isn't a place for me. And that's something that has, I have to say, pleasantly surprised me. Yes, I came in, I didn't even know how a railway operated. But there were so many people who were so willing to be generous with their time. I don't know if I should really call out specific people and embarrass them, but I mean, people who were very good to me in some of my early days, I'll call out people like Tony Eade, who was actually, heading up operations for quite a long time at Railcorp and Sydney Trains. And, he and people like him were very happy to take me under their wing. If you're going to come and work in railways,
Yep.
take the time, show the respect for the industry and come and learn what we do. And people were willing to let me, go into a rail operations centre, come and see how it works. People would get me out in my very shiny looking safety boots and my high-vis vest that's still got the ironed in creases down the front of it, looking like a brand new apprentice. But people would take you out. And if I was interested in their work and what they did, people would reciprocate, more than reciprocate, and they would give generously of their time. The signalling and control system engineers at Sydney Trains and the telecommunications people, gave hours and hours and hours of their time teaching me their world so that I could do my job more effectively. So people, if you just nudge the door a little bit, you might find it's not actually locked. If you nudge it ajar, people are going to let you in and welcome you.
What a great addition to the railway family. I should thank the leadership team who let you in. And you know what? You're a key member of this railway family. Look where you are and what an inspiration to many people out there.
Well, I think the one thing we should remember, and I know you do this as well all the time, is if we've gone through the door, make sure we keep it open for others. And I know that's a passion of yours as well, is making sure we're keeping space for the next generation.
We have to run these railways. You know what? One question is really, really kicking me in to ask you, because looking into your journey and your struggles and your surprises, what do you think? What is your top strategy for success? How did you made it there? Is it a straight line?
Oh, it is never a straight line. It's never a straight line. Well, it certainly wasn't for me. And I've talked in other things before about the zigzag career.
Yep.
And, yes, you should always keep moving forward, but that can involve some sideways steps. Sometimes you do need to go sideways and do something a little bit different, or do what you do in a different place so that more opportunities will open up ahead of you. And we've both done that in our careers, is gone somewhere that's a little bit off to one side, but knowing that that's going to open up a whole new realm of learning and opportunities. I think, the other key strategy is don't be scared of the fact that you still have to keep going back and doing some quite basic, detailed tasks. I know we all talk about, you become a leader, you need to be thinking strategically, you need to lift yourself up out of the weeds. And yeah, you do need to do that. You do need to be able to lift yourself up and look at, what's the direction we're going? Where are we going? If you don't know where you're going, how on earth can you expect anyone to come with you? But it's okay to keep diving back into the detail as and when you need to. Because that's the nature of the industry. It's big, it's complicated, and you do need to keep getting back in and getting involved in the smaller things occasionally. And it's just always trying to constantly readjust and keep that balance right, though.
Correct. Wow. I should say again, yeah, there's lots to take in. I can't thank you enough for this great answer, Helen. Moving forward, I think I want to ask you, what is the most valuable lesson you have learned in your life?
I think one of the lessons that I've learnt, and it probably comes a little bit from what I said, my inability to say no and my wanting to take everything on and, wanting to see good outcomes in everything. And probably the biggest lesson is lean on others and take help when it's offered. And, forming a good team around you, building trust, building relationships so that when you do need that help and support, and when you've got a problem that's going to be so much better solved by having several brains around the table contributing, is let it happen and have a bit of faith, in the process and in harnessing the collective brain, and trusting that between you can come up with, I don't want to just say the right answer, because there's not always a single right answer, but you can come up with a good answer. And that letting go of that feeling that just because you're the one in the lead or the one who's got manager or director or whatever in your title, it doesn't mean that you're the one who's got to have the answer. Now, I know a lot of people out there listening know that already, but sometimes it's just hard to enact, to sit in a room and think, wow, we've got a really good challenge here, and I don't know how we're going to fix this. I don't know how we're going to solve this. And just learning that it's okay to let others do that, and you're not solely responsible. It's really quite liberating.
Correct. Wow. Helen, just reflecting back, looking from your academic qualifications, your career in defense, moving to Australia, yes, your whole career in railway transportation or the transportation industry, your experience. Now, what I want to ask is where you want to go. So, what do you think? What's next for you now?
What is next for me? Well, I have to be honest, and I do like change, and I do get itchy feet after a couple of years of doing something. And so I'd never like to be completely standing still. What I have found in my career so far is even if I don't move jobs all the time, it's so fast changing that, you can stay in one position, but what you're doing in that job changes and moves so fast, because we are moving forward so fast. And that does satisfy my need to be challenged and my need to be, constantly excited and looking for the next thing. There's certainly plenty to do where I am at the moment. I'm in that wonderful position, as I have been a couple of times in my career, of taking a team and being part of a team that's going through growth and change. And that's a wonderful place to be. I'm never quite content if someone gives me something fully formed to look after. I like going through that change with people. Don't always get it right, but I love being through that. So there's plenty at the moment to keep me entertained. Eventually, the other passion I do have is things we've touched on before, is actually getting more involved with, developing and encouraging the next generation of engineers into the industry. If you'd asked me what I'm going to be doing in 10 years' time, I would certainly love to be taking a greater role in reaching back, promoting what a career in STEM can be. I would love to be trying to break that perception of engineers and us just being very boring, technical, logical,
Yeah.
designing things and fixing things, and for people to understand that engineering is actually creative and problem solving, and to really to find some kind of a role, even if it's alongside, another part of my career, of really getting more engaged and more involved back into schools and universities, and potentially, rather than just doing that on the side in my, some of my free time,
Yeah.
is to find a way to actually make that a part of my day to day of what I'm doing. That's something I would really love to move forward into eventually.
I think I had that question written it down, penciled down for you, and even though you covered most of it, I would rather ask it again. So, do you have an advice for those interested in railway field or the younger generation who are still in unis or in TAFEs as well? So how do we actually let them know that there is an industry called railway, and how we encourage them? Because not many people, when deciding what to do next, don't even consider railways as a career.
No, I know, and it's a shame, and I know myself I might not have done. So, I mean, obviously, look, it's important to reach out to all levels. We need to get younger people interested in technology and engineering and in railway, and understand what the careers can be right back at school level. I don't know the exact right
Mhm.
age. I'm not an educator, but I think certainly we've got to be reaching out to children at the end of primary school years, year 5, year 6, and sparking that interest. I think we
Agreed.
need to be, yeah, we've got to get people out. We've got to get people actually out talking in schools, so you can actually see people. You're familiar with that same phrase. You can't be what you can't see,
Correct.
and actually let people see and meet people, and really working out what are the best strategies for doing that. And it's not always necessarily someone like myself going out into a school. It's got to be somebody, I think anyway, it's got to be someone who's relatable and perhaps a little bit, dare I say, closer in age, even sometimes, maybe. So sometimes the role of ourselves in the industry is to support and sponsor those who can do the outreach effectively. So I mean, I've seen some lovely chains running. Some of the organisations, again, we've both been involved in things like Robogirls, there's Tech Girls, there's a number of the societies at the universities, across all the states, so that the time and effort that's put in is effective, and we make the most of people's time. Finding out what's needed in terms of support from our industry. But yeah, really reaching out so that we've got this whole lovely chain and cascade of, everyone's supporting the layer behind them, but really just trying to spark the imagination of that next generation. And that's, obviously you'll hear me
Yeah.
talking quite a lot about trying to get more females into the industry. But we need
Correct.
to do activities that gets everybody into the industry, and that's really, really important for us to do next.
I think even the transport is trying to do something. From the talent program, we invite the scholars and graduates and train them and make them work in each and every part of railway, and then the graduates then decide where to go. I think we should invest more in advertising railways, bring more scholars in, and rightly pointed, we should go to the grassroots level, right from school level. I think that's a nice strategy, a great idea.
I think we should, and I think we need to be more open-minded as well about what entry routes and what disciplines have a place in the rail industry. I always end up being a little bit biased towards engineering because I am an engineer, but there are so many different careers, and as you say, bringing whether it's graduates and interns coming in and letting them see quite how many aspects of the railway there are. And I would certainly encourage anyone who's interested in rail is don't just get fixated on one possible career in rail, because there will be others that you don't even exist.
Yeah, I
Think
agree.
of things like human factors integration. That is absolutely fascinating. The whole interaction between the human
And the
and
machine.
the rail system machine, and it's just fascinating. There are so many angles to it. I mean, that's just one example, but and there's cybersecurity, there's how to do operations, how to do planning, automation coming through. So I'd certainly say to people who've got a little spark or an interest in the railway is come and spend some time. Yes, there's outreach programs both on the government side and in a lot of private industry, but also be bold, reach out, ask for mentoring opportunities, ask for internships. Just because they haven't been offered yet, there's no harm in asking, and come and find out and be open-minded that what you thought you might want to do in rail could end up being very, very different.
Completely agree. Do you mind sharing, if anyone new to railways listening to this podcast, are there any platforms where they can go and find out something?
Oh, I'm trying to think the best ones to go. And we should probably, when the podcast goes up, is actually try and see if we can leave room for others to tag on links and opportunities as well. So certainly I know you've already mentioned that, the talent teams in Transport for New South Wales is one opportunity, and going onto that website. Look, many of the, the supplier side in the rail industry have really quite mature programs around bringing people into rail. So again, more than happy to put our contact details as well, but sort of reaching out to the people and culture teams in any of the major organisations, I think people would find they would get a good response. So yeah, look, there are many avenues to come through. Engineers Australia, if it's down that technical route, I've certainly had points of contact coming in through there. And obviously the universities have the various societies who generally are building up more and more mature and really effective relationships with industry.
Amazing. Wow, what an amazing discussion it has been. Really, I thoroughly enjoyed. I believe people who are listening to this as well might have got something to take away. And thank you. Thank you, Helen, for your time and sharing your experience and thoughts with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on, and I can't wait to listen to the rest of the series myself.
I believe everyone listening to this podcast has got something to take away from today's podcast. If you like this podcast, please listen, follow, and share this podcast within your network. If you believe we should be sharing your story or someone within your network, there is a railway leader who should be here sharing his or her contribution to this industry, contact me on railwaytransportationsystems@gmail.com. Thank you for your time today. See you next fortnight. Until then, stay safe and take care of yourself.